Morning, everybody. This is an Aureate Crest morning. Aureate Crest is a cliff tea from northern Fujian province in the Wuyi Mountains. So by the end of today, part of what you'll have in your toolkit is a real understanding of all the elements that go into brewing a cliff tea. And this is really important because you all have some sense of the processing, and we've gone through that in great detail, and we'll touch some of that again. But we haven't done in great detail is how to think about brewing and how to get the most out of these teas, because these teas are extraordinary. And if you don't have extraordinary methodology, extraordinary tools, in some way, it's a mismatch. And we want to, part of tea culture and tea rhythm is about getting everything matched correctly. And when you get it matched correctly, all of a sudden you have a magical experience. All right, it's been a good week here. We've thought and looked at a number of things related to new samples, thinking about what we're going to get this year. This year, it'll be less than the last few years, but it'll still be probably 15 to 20 new teas is what we're currently estimating. So those are all things you have to look forward to, not the ridiculous 40 number that we had the last couple of years. So that's the main stuff that's happened this week. We haven't made a decision yet on whether we're going to go to Asia at all during the fall. We have the strong desire to, because we'd like to ascertain whether it is safe to actually take customers with us for next springtime. And we'd really like to do that. And there's a number of reasons that we're hopeful that we can pull that off. But the prerequisite is we got to go there first and make some judgments about things, as well as gather information about where we'll be able to stay and so forth. So that's where we are with that. I know a lot of people are anxious about that. We're even more anxious because we want it to happen, but it's only going to happen under the right circumstances. Aureate Crest, a cliff tea. So cliff tea really is a fancy name for Wulong tea, but it's more than that. It's a name which gives you definition of where this tea is from. You cannot have cliff tea from Taiwan. You can't have cliff tea from Phoenix Mountains. That's not what cliff tea refers to. And it's a specific Chinese term, yan chop. And that term is only used in the Wuyi Mountains. And one of the reasons it's only used there is because it has a much broader implication than just tea from that location. It's the implication about what the terroir is. It's the implication about, from a tasting perspective, what you might expect. What would be the guardrails on a tasting perspective? All of these things are related to cliff tea. Anytime you're talking about cliff tea, you have to be talking also about liars, cheaters, and scammers, because cliff tea, just like Dragonwell, is a huge target for these type of individuals to try and take advantage of the tea public. And how do they do that? And why did they choose these two particular teas to be, tea varietals, I should say, to be the ones that they most go after? Well, this must be a price issue. So remembering that 20 grams in 2007 of tea from the original scarlet rope bushes went for, at auction, 180,000 US dollars. All of a sudden, you get a sense of, oh, this is really rare stuff at the highest levels. So how do we divide low level, high level, medium level? Is there a standard? And how should you be able to understand that standard? When you talk about high level, it's a real geographical standard. That's the first prerequisite. Has to be within the mountain. Now, within the mountain sounds like a very vague term, but it's not. Zhengyan, if you say that in China and people drink tea, they generally speaking know exactly where you're talking about. And it's a 7 square kilometer area within the Wuyi Mountains. And this area over the years has produced the most famous teas and the best quality, judged to be the best quality of teas coming out of that area. So number one is geography. Number two, does varietal matter? Not as much as you might think. So really, location trumps varietal. Now, it is true that when you're talking about scarlet rope, which really is a hard topic to talk about. And why is it hard? Because scarlet rope initially really only referred to a varietal, but now it's become a brand. Now it's become this status symbol. It's linked with all these real historical and pseudo-historical imaginations and events. So there are apparently a few bushes of original scarlet rope. And original is even a misnomer, isn't it? Because original to what date? To the 1600s, into the Ming Dynasty, back to the Tang Dynasty. Nobody can tell you these answers. Lots of people may give you what they believe are answers, but I'm here to tell you that those answers aren't verified by history. And all the clues that we can find suggest that that varietal existed maybe 400 years ago, maybe. That's not a huge stretch. 500 years ago doesn't seem like a huge stretch. But if you said to me, okay, well, 500, heck, you're halfway already to the Tang Dynasty. You might as well say it originated during the Tang Dynasty or existed during the Tang Dynasty. And the answer would be no. Can't say that because we don't know. We don't currently have evidence. Why again did I say currently? Because just like China's got this old long history, and every so often a tomb gets excavated, and when it gets excavated, there's material in that tomb, which then gives us further clues. And as such, there might still be some clues forthcoming. So from that perspective, we're always taking a look at what new information is coming up, and we can understand from a historical standpoint. All right, so it's geographical location number one. Varietal, if it were truly scarlet robe, that original set of bushes from within that area, that would be supremely famous and supremely worth something. Priceless, as it turns out, because so little is produced. So that's the highest grade possible. What if we talk about a lesser grade? Where are we in the Wuyi Mountains? Well, we're outside of the Zheng'an area. So I ask you this. Does this mean out of that 7.7 square kilometer area, as soon as we take our first step over the border, oh, this middle level tea. 1 foot is in high grade tea. I better pick from this side. I can drink from this side, but I better pick from this side. Answer would be no to that. What are we looking for? What's magic about that geographical area? It's the broken, and they call it rotten rock. Rotten rock. My goodness. I don't usually have rotten rock. Rotten rock refers to volcanic soil that's broken down mostly into rock-like particles. And so what do I mean by rock-like particles? Not boulders, but ground up, not completely ground up, but almost gravelly type of size of soil. And that soil is about, it's about 1 meter deep. And the acidity of that soil runs anywhere from about 4.2 to about 5.5. Okay, so it's not only location, but it's characteristics of that location. So as you're going down to the next grade, what are the characteristics of that location? Well, first off, you don't have that, in quotes, rotten rock. Instead, you have a lot of finer soil. You have some red soil included in that. You do have a little volcanic soil, but it's not of the intensity as in that 7.7 square kilometer area. So that then becomes the next grade. Are there any grades outside of that? Well, there's 2 more grades. One grade is lower down the mountains. In fact, it's at the foot of the mountains, and it's got loess for soil, L-O-E-S-S. That's the very fine dust soil. And the quality of the tea from that, no matter what you do, no matter how good a brewer you are, it will never, ever even come close to middle or higher levels. So those are the 3 levels, but I said there were 2 more, right? And so I just gave you 1 more. Let's see, is my math any good this morning? Oh yeah, there is 1 more. There's the LCS level. The LCS level comes from somewhere way away from outside of the Wuyi Mountains. And it's the belief that we can do anything anywhere so long as we understand the basic tools that are needed. This is part of the belief. And the tea market, when they get sucked into this, and most of the people who are drinking at the high end would never, ever accept that statement. But the middle to the lower end of the tea drinking market would easily accept that statement. Oh yeah, give me the right acidic soil. Let me get a little fertilizer that looks like rotten rocks. Let's put that all together. I can probably take a clone off of one of the plants when I go visit the Wuyi Mountains, get that growing, and then I'll have cliff tea. Sadly, that's not true. You won't have cliff tea. And for all of you who've had the really great stuff, you won't be fooled because the taste is demonstrably different. It's a whole nother ballgame different. So this right away debunks the theory, which you see actually on packaging from Taiwan. So I had a Taiwanese friend give me a gift, a tea gift. And this was many years ago before he realized I was really doing tea. And on the package, it said, it did say Taiwanese as the lead to it. So that was good. And then it followed it with Cliff tea. Now, if I didn't know any better, I would think to myself, Taiwanese Cliff tea. Oh, this must mean that there's a Taiwan guy living in the Wuyi Mountains creating Cliff tea. Because we all know that Cliff tea only comes from the Wuyi Mountains. But no, that's not what this meant. This meant, oh, we've got cliffs too over in Taiwan. You know what? We can say Taiwanese cliff. And then just say, well, it's a tea too. So the answer is no. That's bad advertising. It's misleading advertising at best, because it's just like this sense. I saw something, an even greater travesty from Taiwan, Taiwanese scarlet robe. Taiwanese scarlet robe. You know, in a way, it's like a customer who used to believe that, yeah, give me, this was scientists, give me the correct acidity, give me the soil components, and I will produce scarlet robe here in Montclair. Montclair scarlet robe. The only thing wrong with that, let's say that somehow we had teleported a section of the soil from the Wuyi Mountains straight to Montclair, got the right varietal, had the individual plant and grow. What is still wrong with this statement? Well, there's two things wrong. First off, are the climatic conditions here identical to what they are in the Wuyi Mountains? Well, let's see. Let me think about the Wuyi Mountains. Average temperature throughout the year, 68. Oh, that seems not too far off. 255 frost-free days of the year. Let's see, I wonder how many frost-free days. Well, we probably have almost 365 frost-free. So we've got a 50% difference there. Well, you know, that probably doesn't matter that much. Well, let's talk about water resources. There, on an average year, it rains 75 to 80 inches a year. Oops. You know what? I'm going to just get the hose and put more water out there. Then that'll take care of it. And the answer is no. You can't have cliff tea out of that area, because those geographical and climatic conditions are just simply not replicable. Not in China, not anywhere else. The number of foggy days that they have there, and because of the configuration of the mountains and how, whether you grow on the north side or the south side, makes a difference because of the amount of sunlight and the intensity of sunlight. Also, what about the bugs? Do bugs matter? And it turns out that they do, because they work in the soil in different ways, different areas, right? And so the result is you really can't have cliff tea outside of the Wuyi Mountains. Okay, so you have this wonderful resource. How do you brew it? Well, the tea master is going to show you how you brew it. But I'm going to talk to you about the elements you should think about. First thing is water. Okay? Is your water as good as you can get it? Is it spring water? Is it filtered water? How filtered? What's left over? All of these elements need to be considered, because they're going to influence the final outcome of what you taste. And since water is more than 99% of what you have in the cup when you make it, this turns out, oh, water is pretty important. It's really important. And in China, they have essay after essay, historical essay after essay. Oh yeah, I got my water from this well or this spring over in this small mountain area. And they'd have contests where they brew the same tea using different sources of water. And they wrote long essays on this. Water matters. And in fact, that's the number one thing we look at when a customer comes in and says, oh, it doesn't taste the same at home as it tastes when I come to the shop. Well, what's your water resource? How are you handling that? So that's really, really important. And you need to experiment to get the very best. We have industrial filters here, and we filter all of the stuff that we would find obnoxious if it ended up in the tea. What else outside of water is important? Well, we talked about source of leaves. When you get the leaves, how about storage of leaves? Is that important? Can you just take those leaves and put them in the refrigerator, right? It's an agricultural product. You just put it in the refrigerator, hope for the best, and then when it's time to serve, open it up, throw it in a pot or whatever brewing vessel, and then put hot water in. Will that work? And the answer is no. Cliff teas must be stored not in the refrigerator, and they need cooling, a cool place of storage that's free from aromas. Very, very important. And optimally, you ought to store cliff tea by specific varietal. Now, that's not an absolute requirement. And for most of you, you would say, well, that's just plain old silly. A cupboard for Scarlet Robe, a cupboard for Aureate Crest, yeah, that is silly. That's not how our kitchens are set up. So that's not realistic. However, what is realistic is all the cliff teas. You have 12 of them, boink, 12 in the same area. That's very realistic. So that's very important if you're going to maintain the quality of the final result. What about what you brew it in? Can you brew it in glass? Well, the key part of that question was the CAN. You can do anything that's physically possible. Will you get a result which will make you happy compared to how happy you are in here when you get it out? Not with glass. Cannot do it. The glass does not retain the heat at the same rate that a clay pot or a ceramic pot does. Ceramic is passable, but it's still really not as good as clay. Clay is great. Oh, but having great means that there must be something called greater. Outstanding clay is greater. So where you get it from in the clay vein itself makes a difference. All of these elements will add to your enjoyment of the tea. And if a tea purveyor is unable to convey these principles, then you should probably look for another tea purveyor. So these are the elements. These are some of the most important elements. Now, Tea Master will show you details. You know, don't put the scalding water directly on the leaves if you can help it. You know, and she'll go through that whole demonstration with you. So that matters at a different level. But all of these things put together will provide you with the perfect cup of cliff tea. All right, Tea Master has already signaled me about 8 times that I'm still talking and she's still waiting. That's not a good thing to be signaled 8 times. Once or twice, that's okay. So it is my great pleasure to bring the beautiful Tea Master to brew, to demonstrate Aureate Crest.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, this is 原厂啊，把它嵌水这杯哈。So yeah, if you like, you can send me ha. So brew the same time, same flavor. Okay, just talk to everybody. So it's very important. Clay to clay, and transfer class or ceramic. This cup of tea, but this is my style. Okay, I use the so usually so I use this one, but today I like it. Sometimes I use my style. Everybody have the free innovators. This is my style. This is the over this size. This is large. So okay, but the tea putting inside, I put this teapot. This is this teapot, not this teapot. So
okay, so you see her setup. She has, for the equivalent of a kettle, she's got a very large clay pot, and that's what she's going to fill up with the hot water. This will be the pot she uses to brew in. These are tea toys, and then you got to have your cup, your recipient cup. So this is how she set up her tray.
yeah, if you have the 2 clay teapot at home, you can use it to yeah. But definitely, the not close by same size, but one is we need a large.
So the first step, she's taking 200-degree water, making sure the pot is clean and heated inside and out. You can get a better result if you heat inside and out. If you heat just the inside, it's good. But we're not about good. We're about great. Heat inside and outside. And she's pouring off this water because this water was meant to heat the pot only. And you could have used any temperature between 200 and 212. Zero problem. And at the end of the pour, she also pours into the glass to make sure that the glass has no impurities and also to heat the glass. So she's going to bag number 3, Aureate Crest. There's 5 grams in there, and we're going to brew this for 3 minutes. She's going to transfer the leaves into the recipient pot.
This is same this is in Wuyi same.
They're both clays what she needs. One is a larger volume.
Yeah.
This is a 20 ounce, and that's a 16 ounce. And that's what we use in the shop, 16 ounce or 12 ounce. You'll set your timer for 3 minutes. Actually, you won't do anything except look first. I set the timer for 3 minutes. You notice after she added the leaves to the heated pot, she shook them. Why? What she's trying to do is distribute the heat among the leaves and wake them up. She's drawing 200-degree water. And the reason we like a kettle or another teapot is because you can control the pour. In other words, you can control where it's going to land. So she's pouring into the brewing pot.
Yeah, when you brew the tea not for outside, okay? Inside, yeah.
Okay, so we set the timer for 3 minutes. Have this pot where the tea is brewing. All right, so I'll quickly go through the process with you because this is a complicated process. We've gone through some of the elements that are really, really important in terms of brewing. Tea processing, I think you know, but I'm going to remind everybody. You pick, this is a spring pick. You pick through at the latest May 7th, May 10th, and then you go through 3 months of processing, essentially. So June, July, and August. And the tea, though not ready for market really in August, is ready to sample. Not for most people, but for buyers of the tea. So that's why we're excited, because we're coming up to a sample period here. And we've already been in contact with farmers who tell us that this year promises to be good. So we'll see once we get the samples. So you pick, you take the tea through a process where essentially you wither, reduce the moisture. And by the way, I'm shortening 25, 26, 27 steps into major categories of what you do. But within each of those categories, there's a lot of details. So when you pick, you got to decide, oh, is it going to be 2 leaves or is it going to be 3 leaves? There's details. When you wither, how many times do you wither outside? How many times do you take it inside? How do you control uniformity of removing the moisture, especially if you're going between outside and inside? There's all sorts of techniques for that. They have colorful names for the techniques for doing that. But essentially, at the end of the day, you're trying to get the tea down to a certain amount of moisture. After that, you will actually roll or shape the tea. You shake it. What you're trying to do is bruise the tea leaves. So the general category is bruise the tea leaves. Many ways to do it. You can do it in a machine. Most of the time in the Wuyi Mountains, because this is a World Heritage craft area where they do it one time a year. Where they do what? Where they pick and process one time a year. They many times do the shaking in the traditional way. Yes.
In the growing process, would our air quality also be a factor?
Oh, great question. So the questioner says, when this is growing, if you have polluted air, would that damage the plant? And the answer is absolutely yes, it would. So the wonderful thing about the Wuyi Mountains is it's a World Heritage Site. There is no manufacturing within the park itself. Outside of a few temples are manufacturing small quantities of tea. And therefore you don't see, it's almost like you've entered a paradise when you go to the Wuyi Mountains. And that's one of the reasons every year since we've been doing tea, we end up at the Wuyi Mountains. We have to go. It's that compulsion to get to this clean, wonderful place where the attitude of people is different even there. The rhythm is different. This is a tea drinking rhythm. China is a tea drinking country. I know this. But this particular area is more intense in that than other areas in China. And so there's that rhythm. Everywhere you go, everybody wants to serve you tea. And they're proud of their tea. And they don't want to do a bad job of brewing. They want to do a really good job. In fact, so much so that if they detect, oh, I didn't do a good job of brewing, they quickly gather everything up, toss it all out, and start again. Because they know what this is supposed to taste like. And if it's not meeting standard, they'd rather throw it away and restart than to serve a guest. So that's the place that this is. We live in these picturesque, or when we take customers and put them in these picturesque hotels, it's not that the hotels themselves are particularly picturesque, but the windows looking out to the mountains, the fog coming down on the mountains, just a beautiful, beautiful area So much so that actually Xiaobei and I at one point looked at some houses there because we thought, you know, we come to China every year. Where would we like to live while we're in China? And where would we actually just like to spend time, period? And who are we friendliest with? It's in the Wuyi Mountains. It's a really remarkable place. All right. Now we're about to, from the Wuyi Mountains, enter the quality arena. Remembering, this is a 200-degree steeping, which means this is hot. So when you, in a minute, we're going to take an inhalation, a 200-degree inhalation, very carefully. But first, I'm going to tell you that without doing anything, my nose is telling me, oh my God, I'm home. I'm in the Wuyi Mountains. This thing smells just spectacular. Yep, but I'm not supposed to say that before you have a chance. So let's do the quality review here. First time around, an inhalation, lightly cover the tongue, figure out a level of astringency, where in the mouth, hey, is there an aftertaste? And then how do you feel? What energetics are associated with this tea? Let's do it. I'm doing it. You'll do it in a minute. Wow. Okay. I'm going to do it again because now I'm going to focus. I already got a clear picture from that first inhalation. Now I'm going to focus more on taste, aroma, but reinforcing the other aspects of what I was just looking for. Still a while. All right. It's your turn to brew. And then we'll talk about this tea. So the tea master is going to brew with you. Was there a question? No. So the first thing the tea master is going to do is make sure that the pot that we just brewed this in is completely empty, no leftover leaves, because we're going to brew in this together with you a brand new set of leaves, because we want everybody to be on the same page. She's going to take her second clay pot, fill it with water, 200-degree water. You can use this type of kettle. It's no problem. We're just doing something stylistic this morning. So pouring the water over the pot, in the pot. On the tea trays, in the glass. And what Xiaobei is really doing is making sure that there's no leaves left over from the first steeping in there. Because again, you don't want any influence on what this is going to taste like. And it will influence if you leave leaves in there.
一定要有一条线。
So when you're setting up things on your tea tray, the way they would do it, whether you're doing small cup or large cup, this is all the same principle, all in a line. Put the leaves in, shake them up, trying to distribute the heat, get that little smell of it, make sure you put the right leaves in. Drawing your water. This is the 200-degree water. Making sure your timer is set for 3 minutes. Pouring it in. the brewing vessel. Remember, if you're using a ceramic brewing vessel, it'll be 3 minutes. If you're using one of the special teapots, ordinarily it would be less grammage, but in the absence of less grammage, you can pull this out in 1 minute and 15 seconds. Start the timer, and we continue with the process. So we bruise the leaves. This was after the withering, several different ways to do that. Then you actually cause the oxidation created by the bruising to come to a stop. And you do that by applying heat, usually 300 to 400 degrees. Usually do that for about 12 minutes, 12 to 20 minutes, somewhere in that range. And at the conclusion of that, sometimes you'll do further rolling. Sometimes you'll actually go back and bruise a little more, although that's more stylistic. Leaves will seem to recover sometimes. They puff up a little bit. It's really neat to watch. And then they're ready to go for the first round of baking. So the first round of baking or roasting is a stabilization roast. Really, it's to get the water levels down to a certain percentage, sort it so that you get the chaff out of there, whatever doesn't belong, little rocks or stems or uneven leaves, broken leaves, and then label carefully. So what day did it come in? What day did you roast it? And then shelve it. And you're going to shelve it for about 30 days because in the meantime, every day a new batch comes in. They do this process, sort, label, shelf at the end. And so that's about from start, and by start, I mean start at the production facility to that step about 30 hours. And then you got a 30-day rest. 30-day rest, then they're going to roast again. They might roast one more time. If it's designed to be a lighter roast, they might not roast again. But usually there's at least one more roast. So that gives you the big picture. What other big pictures must you leave with today? You got to understand that the varietals over the years in the Wuyi Mountains have changed. Not all of them, but the varietals were characterized by different names, very colorful names, and usually by little bunches. They weren't planted in the monoclonal style. There were little bunches of bushes, and they belonged to a separate variety. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Your timer is going off. You're going to separate the tea leaves from the tea liquor. You're pouring steadily. You're not in a hurry. Nice and steady. And your color should look like this. So when you look at it straight on like this, it really looks pretty gold, little hint of red. When you're looking directly on the tray, it looks much darker because this tray is a dark tray. And remembering that this is done at 200 degrees, you're going to be very, very careful because this will scald your mouth if you're not careful. So it's an inhalation. Remember, you don't blow on it because if you blow on it, you interfere with the aroma entering your nose. And the full experience of this is aroma and flavor at the same time. Got to do it. Got to do it that way. that's entered the quality agreement. And one of the reasons that you find that the cliff teas in general have such a wide range of flavors in the same cup is because, remember, at the start, you're doing an inhalation. You're very careful. Whether you want to do tea rhythm or not, you're forced into tea rhythm by the heat of the tea liquor. You can't chug that down. And so, oh, slow, okay. All right, I'm getting it here. And then, you know, as it cools down a little bit more, you drink a little bit more. Oh, there's some difference there. Ah, okay. Drink a little bit more. Oh, more difference. Where'd that come from? So that's the fun of these cliff teas. That's part of the fun of these cliff teas. And that's the challenge also, because sometimes if you rush to judgment, you're surprised. Oh, wait a minute. What I thought in the beginning isn't what I'm thinking now. So you need this whole continuum to kind of understand, to grok these type of teas.
Well, we're waiting for folks to give some of their feedback on what they're experiencing. I want to ask you about one of the pictures that you sent of a mountain, and it looks like there's a banner, red and gold banner, signage of some kind.
There is a red and gold
And
signage
that's
there.
the Wuyi Mountains?
Yes, we're right in the Wuyi Mountains.
Are we in the tea growing location?
Yes, this is the tea growing location. And that is the name of this particular mountain. Oh, no, it's not. It is the name of that mountain, but it's this is very close where the original scarlet rope bushes are. And so that banner belongs, it says at the top the name of the mountain, and then it says the name of the, it's not a store, but the exhibit that is there. Underneath, you can't see very well, but there's a building which has a historical exhibit of the Wuyi Mountains in that area. And so they have old pictures, and you can kind of walk along and look at those. It's fascinating.
Participant feedback, the wet leaves smell like sweet potatoes.
Interesting. Great catch right away. This is what they would say in China. They smell like sweet potatoes. In other words, hints of sweetness.
Ask you another quick question about pictures you sent out participants while they're pondering. Here's one of the itself that's marked with red.
This says Chansi. And what this, oh, that's not so. What it refers to is the style of, it's Buddhism, and it's Zen Buddhism. So that's related to those characters. And actually, this probably was written by the Tianxin Yungle Temple. What? What? Yeah, Tianxi Mountain. And that's a very famous Zen Buddhist temple. And that temple had a relationship with the emperors from the, I think, the Tang Dynasty onward. And there's funny stories about these. In some ways, let's call them anecdotes instead of historical facts. But there's the allegation that monks from this temple, obviously with the leaders, the various leaders over the years, blessing, during certain periods moved around the scarlet robe trees to keep them safe. So example, they at the end of the Qing dynasty, as these bushes were getting more famous, they moved them from where they originally were to another place that nobody knew except the monks. And so therefore you couldn't have poachers come from outside and, you know, pick and so forth. They didn't know where it was. And they also did it for one other reason, because and there's a laundry list of stories about this. It's
about the relationship of the monks with the mountain, but it's so interesting that there's a carving of the name of what this particular sect of
Buddhism, yeah,
actually on the cliffside.
Yeah, they did it.
They did.
They did it. Yeah, yeah.
A little more participant feedback. Another participant says the warm leaves had hints of chocolate, hints of charcoal, and minerality. Also a little florality, but the liquor has this kind of honey butter caramel sweet scent. So we start with the warm leaves with hints of chocolate, charcoal, and minerality and florality.
Florality, chocolate, charcoal, and minerality in the leaves, the wet leaves. Great catch on that. There's all of that stuff going on. And what I like about what you just said is there's a difference between what you smell and then what you taste. Because what you taste is there's hints of sweetness, a little bit of caramel. It's just a very easy on the mouth. You're right. That minerality shows up, but it's not dominant in the taste. It's there, but it's not dominant.
Another participant says, oh my God, the heated leaves smell like dark chocolate and with some floralness. And then there's this vegetal sweetness in those wet leaves, like maybe this orchid scent you talked about before, the Chinese orchid.
Vegetal sweetness in the wet leaves, along with strong dark chocolate. And the chocolate comparison is really an interesting one. And I get why everybody makes this, or so many people make this, because chocolate in its original form is not sweet. It's got very rich aroma. So there's an implication that there's a rich aroma when you use that. And it's also got, chocolate has tannins in it. So I think everybody's picking up on this, and that's a great call. What were the tea liquor characteristics?
That just was comment was just focused on
the leaves.
The
okay.
Leaves, yeah, chocolate. Okay. This kind of for this woman, a vegetal sweetness.
Yep.
Maybe orchid scent off of just the wet leaves. So the wet leaves are like people are getting a lot off of those. Another participant says the sweetness for him is leaning towards dried fruit, presumably sweetness in the scent of the leaves or the scent of the tea liquor.
Sweetness is reminding this particular commentator of dried fruit. Great catch, because there is definitely a sweetness in this. It's very distinct. It is not overpowered by any of the other elements within the tea. Yes.
Another participant says the tea liquor, the liquor leaves a delicate aftertaste of dark chocolate, smooth on the tongue, very little astringency, full mouth juiciness. Love it.
No. Full on the tongue, smooth mouth juiciness with love in there. Hints of chocolate in the liquor even for this particular participant. So everybody is really saying the following thing using these types of descriptions. They're saying this is a pleasant experience. And it absolutely is. Sometimes when you get cliff teas, especially of another grade of cliff teas, you won't get that juiciness, you won't get that roundness, and instead you're struck either with roast only, or kind of a roughness. This has no roughness to this. This is completely, I don't want to say gentle, but it's smooth, it's mellow, juicy, all of those things. Yes.
Somebody else comments that he's getting slight astringency at the center of his tongue, but really juicy mouth.
Juicy mouth and slight astringency at the center of this commentator's tongue. I have astringency center to front. I get that juiciness. Even to me, and this seems a little silly, but even to me, when I took that first whiff of the tea liquor, it already suggested to me that if I hadn't warned myself that this is really hot, this would have been something I would have wanted to take a big swig of. It's that attracting.
Another participant says, now I'm getting a hint of citrus zest in the scent, or maybe it's opening my imagination, it says.
Ah, okay. So this particular commentator continues to go through tea rhythm, to go through trying to understand each layer. And as he's doing this, there's this hint of zest, citrus zest, that he's able to detect.
Got a me too in the chorus of participants, like another participant getting at that the chocolate sensibility.
The chocolate, yes, another participant also gets the chocolate in a strong way. Chocolate is really strong in this. It really is. Not only in the leaves, it's striking in the leaves. It sneaks up on you as the tea liquor cools down. It's like, oh my God, he slipped some dark chocolate in there. Answer is no, I did not. This is a really, really drinkable, attractive starting cliff tea for people that you're trying to introduce cliff teas to.
Another comment on energetics, this one. Focused and energized feeling after this first cup.
Focused and energized feeling at the conclusion of the first cup. Love that comment, because in general, cliff teas will give you that upness, almost like you've been given a little boost in your metabolism.
Another participant says, the sense and taste of this tea, it's so exciting and inviting. Energetics for her are energizing as well.
Sense of the tea is exciting. Energetics are enticing. This commentator gets this high energy from this tea. Love that comment. And it's a great energetics comment. It does leave you with that boost. All right. So I was talking about, let's see if I'm still talking. Oh, I am still talking, but I'm not supposed to be. I'm going to talk a little bit more and then I'll conclude. So the little bit more is to talk about the fact that during 1942 and 43, there was a survey done in one of the, in the mountain areas. And there they counted 830 different varietals. They estimated over 1,000 varietals within all of the Wuyi Mountains. Today, we don't have that type of number, or at least that type of number doesn't seem evident. It seems like more in the 200 to 300 different varietals. But what happened historically was, again, you had all these groups of bushes that were definitely different varietals, and they had a very, very different taste. And this wasn't just a marketing gimmick. People were able to distinguish these tastes. And I think that after World War II, part of what happened is as tea developed and modernized and so forth, some of those small varietals may have been lost. So I think that that's all I'm going to talk about for today. Yes.
Question, how old is this bush?
Oh, this particular bush, I don't know. I'd say maybe 25, 40 years, 25 to 40 years. It's not ancient tree. It's not even an old tree. This is say again. So actually, Xiaobei remembers this to be older, about 100 years old. Great. Well, this was the cliff teas are always a fun session to do. And this whole set, this time when we did Poised, and then we did Earth Spirit, and we followed it up with this. This was just a fun set to do. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Your responsibility the rest of this coming week is to stay healthy. We'll see you next week. You take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.